Hello, I am Dr. Jessica Cooke and welcome to our Feed for Growth video learning series on calf management and nutrition. In this presentation, I will cover the benefits of feeding more milk to calves.
The primary source of nutrition for a calf during the first 3 to 4 weeks of life is milk, as starter intake is minimal. Therefore, feeding more milk, i.e. providing more energy from a few days of age, will help maximise feed efficiency, prevent early weight loss, maximise growth potential, improve health, enhance organ growth and development, and, importantly, improve future performance. I'm now going to go over each of these on the next few slides. Feed efficiency is defined as the relative ability of the animal to turn feed nutrients into growth. It is at its highest during the milk feeding period. Over the first couple of months, feed efficiency is at 50%. This means that under ideal conditions, which is an optimal environmental temperature and no disease, a calf could be expected to convert 100 grams of feed into 50 grams of growth. So, a 28-day-old calf consuming 900 grams of milk solids plus 500 grams of starter, giving a total feed intake of 1400 grams, could be expected to achieve 700 grams of growth under ideal conditions. By the time the calf is weaned, the feed conversion efficiency has dropped to about 36%, and at the point of breeding it has dropped to below 10% at only 8%. Therefore, it is clear to see that for the same amount of feed, as the animal ages, you'll get less growth out for the same amount of feed going in. We therefore need to take advantage of the high feed efficiency in the first 2 months of life and maximise growth during this period. Young calves have an enormous potential for growth. This is data from a study at the University of Liverpool where Holstein heifer calves were fed either restricted volumes of milk or fed ad libitum. Calves fed restricted volumes received 2.5 litres twice daily, with milk mixed at 12.5%. So calves received 625 grams of milk solids per day. Calves fed ad libitum were drinking around 7.6 litres per day at day 5, and by day 26 had increased their intakes to 13 litres per day. During the first 2 weeks, the calf experiences significant health and environmental stresses. Therefore, it was not surprising that the biggest difference in growth between the two groups of calves was over the first few weeks, when starter intake is minimal and the primary source of nutrition is milk. Looking at the graph, which shows body weight over the first 14 days, it can be seen that the restricted fed calves, which is the dark purple line, lost birth weight and then regained it by around day 4, and then grew slowly, putting on only about 2 kilograms by day 14. These restricted fed calves had a daily live weight gain of just 0.17 kilograms per day over the first 3 weeks of their life. Looking at the light purple line for the calves fed ad libitum, it can be seen that these calves grew from day 1. By day 14, they'd put on about 7 kilos in body weight, and over the first 3 weeks had growth rates of on average 0.72 kilograms per day. This data shows that if we don't feed calves enough milk from an early age, they're at risk of losing body weight and then growing slowly. But if we feed calves enough milk, they have a large growth potential for growth over the first few weeks. There can sometimes be concerns on farm that feeding more milk will increase the risk of diarrhea. But a calf drinking high amounts of milk may have more liquid faeces, but this is not the same as diarrhea caused by a pathogen. In fact, a good immune response requires good nutrition, and it has been shown that feeding more milk helps the calf withstand a disease challenge better. This is because mounting an immune response is a considerable energetic demand. So, if a calf is fed more milk and therefore provided with more energy, it is much better able to fight an infection. The table on the left of the slide is data from a study where calves were fed either a high planing nutrition, so they received about 1 kilo of milk powder per day, or they were fed a low level of milk powder, receiving just 500 grams of milk powder per day. All the calves were challenged with crypto at 3 days of age. Calves on the high plain nutrition were better equipped to deal with the crypto challenge. As you can see in the table, these calves continued to grow over the first 21 days, putting on about 9 kilos in body weight despite the challenge. However, the calves on the low plain nutrition lost body weight and had not regained birth weight by day 21 and were 4 kilos lighter than their starting weight. It has also been shown that calves fed more milk up to weaning have a better immune response to a challenge after weaning, demonstrating that there is long-lasting benefits of feeding calves a better plain nutrition. It is not just the volume of milk that is important in terms of supporting calf health, but the speed at which a feed plan reaches the peak milk allowance is also key. A study of 38 farms using computerised feeders found that across individual farms, the peak milk allowance ranged from 5 to 15 litres per day, and the days to reach the peak milk allowance ranged from 0 to 44 days. Calves on farms offered a higher peak milk allowance and that were fed this peak milk allowance at a younger age were cleaner and healthier, i.e. they looked like the left-hand side of the chart. Calves on the farms where there was a longer period of time to reach the peak milk allowance, i.e. up to 44 days, were more likely to have eye discharge and a dirty hide and fever, i.e. they looked more like the right-hand side of the chart. This data shows that it is not just the amount of milk that matters, but how quickly the amount is increased. The sooner after birth that calves reach the peak milk allowance, the better in terms of supporting their health. In addition to feeding enough to hit growth targets, early nutrition and growth is important for developmental programming, i.e. what happens to a cow's performance in the milking herd will be influenced by early life development. Feeding more milk has been shown to increase organ weights such as the liver, spleen, kidneys and mammary gland. This early life development has then positive effects on their subsequent milk yield. Data shows that on average every 100 grams of average daily gain pre-weaning is associated with around 85 to 111 kilos more milk in lactation 1. So this means a heifer growing at 800 grams per day during the milk feeding period would be expected to give around 255 to 334 kilograms more milk compared to a heifer that had grown at only 500 grams per day pre-weaning. So how much should we be feeding calves? Traditionally, we would have slowly increased the amount and rapidly weaned the calves over a short period. But we need to flip the milk curve on its head. We need to offer the young calf more milk shortly after birth and then wean gradually over a 3-week period, with weaning complete by around day 63. As a guide, following colostrum feeding, calves should be fed a minimum of 6 litres per day from day 7, with milk replacer mixed at either 12.5% or 15%. The target on farm should be to double birth rate by weaning. If calves are not doubling birth rate by weaning, the health, environment and nutrition for an individual system needs to be assessed. Calves challenged with poor environmental conditions and or disease will need to be fed more milk to overcome these challenges. Therefore, based on the health and environmental conditions, individual systems may need to increase the milk volume further to, for example, 7, 8, 9 or 10 litres per day to ensure calves double their body weight by weaning. The peak milk allowance should always be reached by 2 weeks of age and offered through until 42 days of age. Weaning should then begin from day 42 to allow a 3-week weaning period to stimulate starter intake and rumen development and to ensure calves are better equipped to cope with the weaning transition. Weaning will be discussed in a separate presentation. In summary, feeding calves higher volumes of milk will help support early growth and development and health, all of which will have a positive impact on their lifetime performance. Calves should be fed a minimum of 6 litres per day, with milk mixed at either 12.5% or 15% solids from week 1, and reach their peak milk allowance by 2 weeks of age. The volume of milk offered will be specific to the individual system, but the target for all farms should be to double birth weight by weaning. Calves should remain on the peak milk allowance until the start of the 3-week weaning period. Thank you.